There's only a Jake there. What? Interesting. Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I'm Jake Bennett.
And welcome to episode 76 of the North Meets South Web podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. It is episode 76. It is a crazy time right now. We've got the George Floyd protests going on. And I say that not because we're going to discuss that on the show, although I think it is a very important topic. And I think this is super relevant. It is also, this is not a political podcast. And there's a lot of hurting people out there right now, and a lot of people concerned about the direction of this country. And they're taking that frustration and that anger out in different ways. And it's a little bit scary. I'll be honest. It's kind of crazy what's going on here. So I think I say that only as like a commentary for future me, so that I remember kind of what's going on as we're recording this. But I think that's my mood right now. It's just kind of like a little bit, I don't know, unsettled for sure. I'm not worried. I'm just unsettled, I think. So
it's a bit worrying just seeing everything unfolding from here with obviously I guess the straw that broke the camel's back. I won't say it's the thing that started it. I think it's the straw that broke the camel's back.
1000% agree with that. Yeah.
It's the, the protests that are becoming riots, just all the footage of National Guard coming in, and we've got law enforcement that are arresting journalists on air. We've got law enforcement that are shooting rubber bullets and paintballs and things like that at journalists on air. All the footage that's been across Twitter, it's hard to avoid. All of the excessive force that's being used, and seeing the responses from some people that, the protester was up in the policeman's face, which somehow justifies the policeman shoving someone to the ground or beating them with their nightstick and things like that. Like, you can get people out of your way. They're trained to do it properly, and this is, it's top-down incitement. Anyway, it's tough to say if you're in areas that are sort of more affected. Obviously you're a little bit removed, but Chicago, New York, in Jersey yesterday, anyone that's listening in any of those places, Georgia, Los Angeles, just now I saw the mayor a couple of hours ago called in the governor to have the National Guard deployed. Just stay safe out there. It's tough. It's tough to watch, and it's not good. And look, I hope that things get better, and I'm sure that they will, but we don't know how bad they'll get before that happens. So to everyone out there, just stay safe and try and look out for each other.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, with that, we will move on. And you and I were both kind of at the beginning of the show, like, what are we talking about today? What are we doing? What are we going to do here?
Who knows?
So I actually, I pulled up a couple of things that I thought were really interesting that I've been looking at this last week, and thought I could share some of those items. So a few of those are links and maybe just some interesting items to talk through. So I'm actually going to share those with you real fast through Telegram. The first one that I wanted to talk about was actually kind of related to this thing called the Mikado method. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't. Tell me what this is.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So I had a problem the other day where I was actually going through some code that Wilbur Power had written, which was awesome code, right? So we used Livewire to do a lot of it, which was amazing. But we had some new requirements come in, and as is so often the case, like, you can't predict the future, so there's no way to know kind of what you need to write in advance, right? So a lot of the things for the way that we had written it previously needed to change. So as I got in there, and you'll recognize this problem that happens. You get in there and you start working on, you look at it and it seems very simple, and then you get about, maybe 30% through the problem, solving the problem that you're trying to solve, and you run into a roadblock that is, oh, well, if I do that this way, then I have this other thing that needs to change. And so you start working on that thing. And then you get about 30% into that, and you find another thing that's like, oh, well, if I'm going to do that, then I have to do this, right? So let me just give a concrete example. What we were doing is we basically started by building this almost like this mini ticketing system. And the way that we did it was somebody could claim a ticket as their own. And the way that we looked at it is we said, well, if they're coming to it for the first time and nobody is assigned to this ticket yet, then they're claiming it for themselves. So go ahead and check to see if the user ID is blank, go ahead and assign it to that user by just sending that user ID, no problem, right? And so the problem was we were now going to let the users, not the users that were working it, but the users that were originally creating the ticket, be able to view it through that same route. So what could happen is you'd end up with a user viewing it and claiming it for themselves on accident. Like they created the ticket and then they go look at it and oops, the user ID is blank for the person who's going to be doing the ticket. So they claim it for themselves. Well, that's obviously not correct. That doesn't work. So we have to change that. Okay. So now we have to change how that works. And then it was like, okay, well, should this actually be the main view instead of like some notes view? Because it doesn't make sense to actually have them separately because the notes view is the main view. Okay, so now we have this whole other thing, right? And so the idea is sort of like pickup sticks. If you've ever played that game, pickup sticks, where you basically have a bunch of sticks and you kind of scatter them on the ground, and your goal is to just take one stick away at a time without kind of affecting or messing with the rest of the sticks. And that's where this name Mikado comes from. That's the actual name for that game, is not pickup sticks, but it's called Mikado. So the Mikado method is basically a method to do safe changes in a complex code base, is the idea of it. So largely untested, poorly documented code bases can be really difficult to work with or reason about, and you can't move fast in a complex database or code base. And in the situation I'm talking about, it wasn't even like, it's not even super legacy, right? But the idea is whenever you fix one problem, two more arise, right? And so this structured way to make valuable changes basically says the only way to solve this problem is to do a little piece at a time. The only way to eat an elephant is a bite at a time, right? So here's the process. Step number one, grab a piece of paper. Like start with a piece of paper. Number two, set your goal. So in my case, it would be, what was the way that I'm trying to remember even what my root goal was in this thing. My root goal was to be able to make it so that users could view the notes of this sort of ticket, right? So that was my goal. Set your goal, write it down at the top of the piece of paper or at the center, it doesn't really matter. Just keep space for other items. So then you try to achieve your goal within a very short time period. So like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. The author of this article suggests 10 minutes. So if you failed to make your changes in that period of time, you undo any changes that you made. That's the crazy part to me. It's like you literally say, like, you know, that command that Jeffrey Way uses, nah, NaH, and it's just like get reset hard and clear everything, like clear your working branch. It's that, do that, nah. And then it says, think about what's missing. So what do you need to do to change to make your goal easier? And now you have a new sub goal. So what's the little thing that you're going to be doing now? Write that down on your piece of paper, attach it to the goal that you originally tried to achieve, and start over from that new sub goal. So what you start with is you start with basically like a tree, and now you're making branches and leaves off of this thing. So the idea is to get down to a small unit of change that you can get done within 10 minutes, and then commit that, check the goal you achieved on the paper, and then start over with the next one.
Right. And so you end up going back up the tree until,
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. So it basically allows you to discover the dependencies of that thing that you're trying to change by basically limiting yourself to saying, I have 10 minutes to solve a problem. And if I can't solve it in that amount of time, it's too big of a problem. Break it down into a smaller step. Still can't solve it, still too big. Break it down. Still can't solve it, too big. Break it down. And so what you end up happening is like basically you're iterating through and branching out and discovering what are all the little pieces that depend on each other. And then the great thing about it is when you revert those changes, you don't have to keep anything in your brain anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And you're also starting fresh with the knowledge that you gained from the last cycle. So, you know, like, okay, I have a clean slate. I'm starting over. I don't have to worry about anything. And now I'm just saying, like, I'm solving this little tiny problem, and that's easy to solve. And you have written down on paper all the other things that you still need to do to actually solve your original goal. But you can come back to code at the end of today. So like at the end of today, you can say, I've gotten these 5 things done, committed, push them up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not stuck with like, where am I?
Yeah.
Right. When you come back tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually got a real example for he's like upgrade his ORM, which is obviously a massive change.
Yeah.
Right. And so he starts there and then finds out like, I actually need to extract the query method and extract the dump method. Okay, pick one of those. I'm going to extract the query method. All right, now I'm going to try and do that. And he kind of goes and goes and goes, right? And obviously the branches and the leaves grow quite large, but he is able to accomplish all those things quite simply, after a while of doing these cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets it down to about 10 minutes worth of work.
Nice.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
I really, really like this idea.
It sounds very powerful. We have our main sort of customer overview page is in desperate need of a rewrite. And one of my team is like, just let me rewrite it. I'm like, you can't. This is like 10 years of legacy in this page. You can't just rewrite it because it's 10 years of legacy and it does all kinds of things that you'll miss. There's obscure behaviors that you'll miss. There's things that don't look like they're used that probably are. And because it's legacy and because it's, old, there's no test for it. So if you change something or remove something or whatever, you don't know that it still does when you rewrite it what it did before. So I think this is a really good way to sort of pick bits and pieces. And it's kind of what we've been doing. We haven't changed the overall structure of that page, but we've been slowly rewriting bits and pieces of it to use Laravel, to use controllers, to have tests for those endpoints. It's kind of gnarly because we've got the page loads with 2 panels. So we're using Bootstrap, and there's a panel which is the customer, which has things like notes, billing, transactions, any customer contact, things like that. And then we've got an accordion for services, which is individual connections. So whether you've got a broadband service or you've got a fixed wireless service or whatever, and then we list them out. And then each one of those service panels in the accordion has a service overview. It has a plan tab. It has a troubleshooting tab, a diagnostics tab, a history tab, and things like that. So there's like 8 or 10 tabs for each of these services. And each time you click on one of those tabs, it sends a JSON request or an AJAX request off to load some JSON. And the JSON, some of it has been rewritten, some of it hasn't been. It's nasty. And it's
practically so basically it's not rewriting one page, it's rewriting 80 pages because you got 10 services, 8 tabs a piece, right? It's like 80 pages pretty much.
So, and picking off bits and pieces like that. So we've done bits and pieces already and rewritten into new things, but there's just like everything is on this was designed to be like this wacky God page where everything gets done, where everything about a customer can be accessed. And there's like some things are done via Bootstrap modals. Some things take you to another page. There's no consistency in that. There's no consistency in styling because we've started using Tailwind for some pieces and we've, Bootstrap for others. So really the whole thing needs a fresh coat of paint, but it needs time from my team, amongst other priorities. Obviously, priorities are new features, new functionality, things like that, not let's rewrite this page. And then it needs buy-in from the rest of the business, which is the most important thing. For the business to say, this is the important stuff and this is what needs to work. It's not just a matter of a developer sitting down for a day or a week or whatever and rewriting the page.
Right.
Because the developer
it's like you need to refigure out the business requirements. Yeah.
Correct. Because the developer is not the person that uses it day to day, that knows what's used most and what's used least and what kind of has to be there but isn't used very often. And you've got to kind of figure out what needs to be front and center, what needs to be tucked away, but not more than sort of 2 clicks away kind of thing. So
yeah,
it seems like a simple process to rewrite this one page, but when you start to pick it apart, as you say, the elephant needs to go one bite at a time. There's a lot there, and it's not something that you would entrust to one person just tucked away in a corner doing it, because it won't end well. Doesn't matter whether it's me or one of my other developers, like something will go amiss.
Yeah. So, um, kind of, that's really kind of where I arrived at with this webpage. So this Mikado method is part of a larger website, which is called understandlegacycode.com. So this is created by a guy named Nicholas Carlo, who I believe is a Ruby developer
Mm-hmm.
out of Montreal, Canada. And he founded the Software Crafters Montreal community, which cares about building maintainable software. And so on his site, Understand Legacy Code, he's got changing messy software without breaking it. And he's got all these articles. There's probably about 20 of them. I have read maybe 5, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all like a gold mine. They literally feel like they're super well written. The page is styled super well, which, I mean, say what you will, but to me that speaks to somebody who really cares about their craft and is like really invested in making sure the stuff is good. And the blog posts themselves read really well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find yourself needing to interact with legacy code, or define what legacy code is, and how you can kind of work with it, I'm telling you right now, this is a super valuable resource that I have found to be very, very helpful. So he talks about the Mikado method. He also talks about the strangler pattern, which is
Mm-hmm.
something kind of what you were just talking about,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like you're taking little bits and pieces and you're kind of converting them over to Laravel. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the strangler pattern, as I've talked to like about this with Matt Stauffer, the way that I've heard him talk about how they kind of do that at Titan is they will essentially make a cutover to say, all right, all this stuff uses Laravel now. So we're going to put a Laravel like routing mechanism in the very front of it. But for the start of it, it may be that 99% of it, all that Laravel is doing is just acting as a route map.
Yeah.
And all it does is the route comes into Laravel, and Laravel says, oh, I'll forward that on to the correct location. And that's it. That's all it does. But what it gives you is it gives you this in-between sort of proxy layer that allows you to, over time, replace those different pieces with Laravel components, right? And being able to use Laravel to do your testing and those sorts of things. So that strangler pattern, and I think he talks about that here. Let me see. Yeah, avoid rewriting a legacy system from scratch by strangling it. So he gives a good example of what that looks like in practice. He talks about where that comes from, where the naming of it actually comes from, and then how to also do that pattern really effectively. So strangle this old code instead of
Mm-hmm.
rewriting the whole code base. Because what ends up happening, we've all seen that happen. When you have to rewrite a code base, it's like you start with green, and then you have to implement not only all the existing features, but all the new features that come in while you're doing the rewrite. And so what ends up happening is it never ships. They just take too long.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nasty. I like this. There's an article on this Understanding Legacy Code website that I've just had a quick skim over, but probably will need a deeper dive. It's called "Earn Future Maintainers Esteem by Writing Simple ADRs," and an ADR is an architecture decision record. So essentially, for every change
Oh,
that you
cool.
make, you would write down the status. So you would say, we're going to do this, and then the status is, under discussion, or whether it's been accepted or whatever. And then you put dates in there. You provide context around why you have made the decision, what the decision is, and what the consequences of that decision are. So when things are changed, you've got a record of that. So this looks like a really solid website. I think Nicholas has got a newsletter as well, where every Wednesday he shares practical tips to help people work with legacy code. So we will link this up in the show notes. It looks like a really good resource if you need to do any refactoring of legacy code in your day-to-day, or if you've got a side project that you're refactoring or whatever. Some good things to keep in mind. Some of these things are the kinds of things that you learn from the trenches, and you learn by making that terrible mistake of, let's just rewrite this page. It 9 times out of 10 is going to bite you on the keister.
Yeah. And so I had been actually looking at his Twitter feed not too long ago, and when you were just talking about, you said it's nothing that rewrite is nothing you would entrust to a single person, right? Because there's guaranteed going to be something that somebody knows about that you forgot about, right?
Yep.
And Nicholas talks about this idea of not pair programming but mob programming.
Yep.
Right? I don't know if
sit
you've ever
down.
heard of that. This is the first. This is the first time I've ever heard of this. But he basically says all the navigators share the cognitive load. So he's got like 5 or 6 people, right? And it says like, all the front end people will catch the front end issues. All the SQL experts will remember the database exports. All the whatever, right? All the business level people remember that. So like you basically are going through it together. Like
Yeah.
you just say, hey, we're going to dedicate the time. We're going to take 6 of us and we're all going to do this together, right? Um,
We did this
I don't know.
on Friday actually.
Did you? Okay.
It was like 3:30 on Friday afternoon. We were struggling with this bug that I wasn't sure of it, and I just opened up Slack in our developer chat. I hit call, and we're all there on the phone, and I said, right, let's work through this as a team because this needs to be fixed before we go home today. And it boiled down to it. We suspect it was a race condition, or not a race condition. It was a concurrency issue where we would say, do we need to do this thing? Then we would log that we did the thing. And there was a reason that we did it this way. So I'll loop back to that. So we logged that we did the thing and then we did the thing, right? So do I
Yeah.
need to do this? I've done it. I'm doing it. Now, for whatever reason, the I'm doing it step would time out. So the job would fail because of that timeout. It would go back onto the queue. Laravel would pick it up and it would go, should I do this thing? Oh, I've already done the thing, so I won't do that thing again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except
Right.
it hadn't done the thing.
Correct. Right.
So I said, okay, well, this seems like an easy fix. Move the I've done the thing to after I'm doing the thing. And that way, at least if it fails, we won't say we've done. Oh, no, but we had to say that we'd done the thing because in certain situations, we need to say that we had done the thing, even if we didn't do the thing. I said, it's 3:30 on a Friday and we need to fix this so we're not fighting with it over the weekend. Let's just wrap the condition in an if statement and put it on either side of the I'm doing the thing, right? So we've got a if the service is active, do it
real
here.
life hashtag
Yeah.
real life development, right?
It was a mess. So it's like if the service is active, say you've done the thing, then do the thing, and then after that, say if the service is not active, say you did the thing. So we had that, and it was just
Yeah.
And look, tomorrow we're going to find out why that's a problem, and we'll fix it properly.
I bet you I can tell you why. I bet you I can tell you why, because we have a similar problem. So, we have this email inbox that we monitor, and it's an Outlook 365 inbox. And so what we do is, the very first step in that process is to move it out of the inbox.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do that because otherwise it's going to get picked up by that same process a minute later, right? So it's like, it sounds similar to your situation where it's like, we did the thing. So it's like, so it doesn't pick it up again next time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay. No, you already did that, right? So
which is fine, except in the case of the thing failing.
Right. Correct. Yeah. So like if you're saying, hey, don't pick me up again, I've already been claimed. But then it fails, then yeah, that doesn't work. So it's like you have to have a separate condition almost that says, no, the thing's not done, but it's been picked up to be done already. And then it's a complicated problem. It's a complicated problem. I can understand that. So
yes, and we're not sure why that it will time out. And the problem that we have is that Horizon will swallow exceptions, and it'll just say because you won't get the exception that triggered the job to fail, to get retried, that failed to you just get the exception at the end that says that it timed out or was retried too many times. I'm like, but what caused you to retry in the first place? Tell me your secrets, Horizon.
So sometimes what we'll do in that, like, I think, do you guys do Sentry?
Yeah, so we've wrapped it all in a try catch, and we're throwing a report in that catch.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
that's why we did that. That's what we did now, so we can find out, and we put some more logging in there just to figure out, because the stack trace essentially showed that we would send a request. So we're using ZTTP because it's an older piece of code, so we haven't used the HTTP stuff that's built into Laravel now.
Sure.
So we're using ZTTP, and it looks like the response, like we get the request in the stack trace, but we don't actually get a response. But we can't see the timeout on the other side. So we control both the client and the server in this situation. But from the server that we're sending the request to, we don't see any errors. We don't see the timeout. We see things happening as they
Nothing.
should. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't like unless it's timing out when it hits the HA proxy. That's the only thing that we could think of. That like
Sure.
the proxy's too busy to take the request and then pass it on to the workers. That's a possibility maybe, but it's very hard to diagnose because we don't control. And this is when you start to get to a certain size and a certain scale where you have different teams that manage different parts of your infrastructure. You don't necessarily have access to all of the pieces of your stack. And so when we send a request from here to there via here, if you don't have access to here, you don't know what happened here before it went to there.
Yeah, it's like invisible. Yeah, exactly. I'm totally with you on that, like 1,000%, because there are certain situations where like our IT teams have access to certain particular things that I don't.
Yeah.
Or
For
other times
compliance,
where
for
like,
certification, for whatever,
yeah,
we don't have
yeah.
access to our proxy servers. So, and it's very hard to
Or
sit
like
there.
the firewall or something
Yeah.
stupid like that, right? Like I don't directly manage our firewall. Like
Yeah.
our IT team does that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, or there's this one proxy server in our DMZ that I can't get to. So like every
Yeah.
time I want to make a change, it could be super small. I have to contact IT and set up a time
Mhm.
after hours to go do that.
Mhm.
Oh my word, it's a nightmare.
Mhm.
Which I can talk about that a little bit later because we were messing with Cloudflare with to solve that problem, which I think is interesting. So I'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But one other resource I wanted to share for any of you who may be doing refactoring or legacy code or actually just looking for some good patterns to use if you're into like programming patterns, right? Like Gang of Five sort of the stuff. There's a site called Refactoring Guru, which I've picked up a lot of good tips from. So it's refactoring.guru. So basically, it has this catalog of all of these different design patterns. So they have like creational patterns and structural patterns and behavioral patterns. And then they give code examples in all sorts of different languages like C#, Java, Python, PHP, Ruby, TypeScript, C++. They have all sorts of them. And they do it's number one, again, it's really well designed. Number two, the content is just killer. It's awesome. And number three, discovering kind of which pattern applies in your situation is also really easy because they give great examples for which situation you want to use. So just for example, for the creational patterns, they have stuff like the factory method or the prototype, the factory method pattern or the prototype pattern or the builder pattern or the singleton pattern. Maybe you've heard of some of these before, but you're not really sure exactly what it is. You can click into it. It gives you great illustrations. It gives you the overall intent of the pattern. It kind of explains, here's a problem you might be dealing with, and here are the solutions that this pattern provides. And then here's a real world analogy and a structure, as well as some code that you could use to implement this in your own code base. It's really solid, and I have benefited a ton from using this. They also have a book that they have for the design patterns and a premium course as well, I think. But their free course is just incredible. So
yeah, this looks
you should
really good as
definitely
well.
check that out. It is super, super good. Yeah. So, and actually, this is like the thing that got me started on state machines. They actually
Always
have in their
find a way.
in their behavioral patterns section, they talk about state, the state pattern. So it's pretty solid. I won't go into it, but the state pattern there does a really good job of explaining it itself.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Hey,
that's really, really good too.
this book is on sale at the moment.
Is it? Ooh.
Normally, well, it's even Australian dollars. I love it. It's normally $47.95 Australian. It is currently on sale for $29.95. So that's probably like $5 in America.
I think it's 30 in the US and
Okay.
it's $20 for the spring sale.
There you go, on sale. I'm gonna buy this right now because it looks good. The website
It's really
looks
good.
great. Login with GitHub, that makes it even easier.
Look at that. So these guys are solid. This is really good stuff.
All right, checking it out. Hey, speaking of premium courses,
Let's talk about it.
Old mate Jonathan Rennick, after announcing his course at Laracon US last year, the Eloquent Performance Patterns course.
Yeah. Yep.
It is launching this Tuesday, the 2nd of June. So he announced it overnight for me. So It's fresh information. I think there's two versions of the course. There's the base package, which is going to be on sale. The launch price will be $99 US. Let me get this up so that I've got the real information here. There is, where'd it go? Come back. There it is. All right. So there are 28 video lessons. There is over 2 hours of content, and you get the full source code in MySQL, Postgres, and SQLite where applicable. The regular price will be $249 with a launch price of $149. And there's also as I said, the cheaper package at $99, which will be regularly priced at $149. That includes 22 videos, but not the source code. So if you've been following Jonathan on Twitter for the last few months, he's been tweeting out lots of tips, lots of work that he's been putting into the course. He's been talking, if you've been on his mailing list, he's been sending out sample videos and things like that. I've picked up some things sort of that I've known, but not really applied, and being able to see someone sort of give that information to me in like a digestible way, and just explain not only like this is the approach, but this is why, has been really good. So I'm really looking forward to this course. This is one that not only will I buy, I will actually endeavor to watch in a timely manner.
Yeah, it's so good. Like there's so many things that he does in this course that I like watch, and I'm like, that's possible? You can do that? I mean, so many things that I've tried to solve in like 100 different ways. It's like you could just do that right in Eloquent or right in MySQL or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really, really good course. And I think what he said is he said, good luck watching this on double speed.
Yeah.
Right. Because he said, yeah, he said, like, I really value your time. And I know that like, basically people's time is limited. So you don't have forever to like listen to fluff and like me do a whole bunch of whatever. So he crams it in there. And so it is jam packed, full of good content. And I've watched a couple of his videos that he's kind of put out as teasers, and they're super solid, super solid.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to a lot of stuff that you'll pick up in this course will apply, especially if you're in application spaces where you need to scale things up. It's always nice to have the luxury of designing databases from the ground up, as many of us do with Laravel. For those of us who have inherited legacy structures, there's going to be a lot of tips in here that are going to help you improve queries against some of those older structures that in my experience are a little bit thrown together. So certainly being able to then leverage some of the power of Eloquent to do things with sub-selects, with subqueries, with raw indexes, things like that you might not consider. There's a lot of stuff in here that'll be really good. So definitely check that out. We'll have links to the course page in the show notes.
Yeah. Speaking of things you should check out, we would like to thank our sponsor this week, Fathom Analytics. So use fathom.com/north is where you can go to get a free trial as well as money towards your first month using Fathom. And so Fathom Analytics is fast, simple analytics for your website. And it also happens to be privacy focused. One of the new things that they just released actually is custom domains and the new embed code options. And what this allows you to do is this allows you to bypass ad blockers. So this is a big thing that's a problem for stuff like Google Analytics, which is that ad blockers just block it anymore. You don't ever get that information because the JavaScript widget is just blocked straight out. I know on all of the stuff that I load on every single page, I'm loading ad blocker and I'm loading Ghostery, which kills all that stuff. So you they never even see me. But with this, they bypass ad blockers by allowing you to load that code in from your own custom domain. So it's not really sneaky either. Some people would say, oh, well, if people want to block my stuff, they should be able to. And I feel you. I hear that. But this is a really privacy-focused company to begin with. They don't use cookies to do any of the tracking. This doesn't follow them around the internet. It's very focused on making sure that the users can have privacy that they deserve. And so this is a pretty cool feature, and it's going to make sure that you're getting all of the traffic, analytics from all the traffic that you're receiving. They also do a great job making sure that all this information is digestible. So they give you a one-page sort of dashboard that allows you to see how many unique visits you have, how many page views you have, average of the time on the site, bounce rate, goal completions, and it's all real time as well. So their dashboards are gorgeous, look great, and everybody who I've talked to who's using it has nothing but really good things to say about it. So definitely check out Fathom Analytics. Use fathom.com/north to get your free trial, as well as I think it was it $25 towards
I think it's $20.
$20 towards your subscription there. So definitely check that out. Thanks, Fathom. Okay. So the other thing that I was going to talk about was Cloudflare Argo. So I'm assuming you know what Cloudflare is.
I'm aware.
Is Cloudflare available for you in Aussie land?
Yeah, they just launched a POP in my hometown a couple of months ago.
Nice.
So
that's pretty awesome. They provide a ton of amazing
they're
services.
9 milliseconds away from me now.
Wow, that's super cool. That's super cool. So one of the cool things that they do is that global DNS stuff, right? Like 1.1.1.1. And so they want to make it really easy to get DNS resolution through them. And I think the other thing they do is they try and make sure that like nothing is censored, right? I think it's kind of the goal with that. But also
they
have
launched a new DNS product where they specifically do censor stuff. There's like it's a kid friendly or something, or
correct. Yeah. It's like they have two different levels. There's like a kid friendly one. And then I think there's like, there's like a family one, and then there's like a not as family, but still restricting some content. And it's all for free, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I turned the family one on, and like my Roku wouldn't connect anymore. So I had to turn it back off. But I thought I'd give it a try and see how it worked. And Fortnite wouldn't connect either. Graham couldn't, my son Graham couldn't do like voice chat with his friends. But a lot of the product that they offer is DNS, and then also they provide proxies for all of your DNS stuff, where they'll help with stuff like DDoS attacks or even cross-site scripting attacks or things like that. They use a lot of intelligence in their front end. As you pass your request through Cloudflare, they basically have like a little machine there who's inspecting all the requests, and then they'll pass it along to you. So here's the situation that we had, and I'll explain it quickly, and hopefully it makes sense, and I'll give some context and some applications for why it might be useful to you. So the situation that we have is that we have a server that lives inside of our network that needs to be exposed to the outside world. So I need to have a app.example.com. And that app.example.com on the outside needs to point to an internal IP address. This is okay, but the reason why this is problematic is if somebody hacked that server, they're now inside my network, right? So if they can get in through HTTP or HTTPS, they have access to all sorts of stuff that they should not have access to. So as part of our compliance rules, what the company that's auditing us makes us do is they make us have a host outside of our firewall that accepts the request and then proxies that request to our internal server through our firewall, right? So then all we do is we say, our internal server, you only allow traffic from this one IP of this machine that's sitting outside of our firewall. And what that does is it basically protects us from anybody hacking straight through. It basically adds another level that they'd have to hack through to that server, and then they'd have to hack that server through to get all the way through, right? So that's the goal. The problem is every time I want to make a change to this, or I want to switch the machine, I have to get IT involved to update the firewall and to update that proxy machine out there to point to a new location. And it's very painful. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So what Argo Tunnel does, think of like if you're using Laravel Valet, how when you do Valet share, it just magically opens up this port that's available on the outside world, right? How does it do that? Is it poking a hole in your network firewall? No, it's not doing that, right? What instead is it's doing is it's connecting using outbound traffic because there are no filters on your outbound traffic. And I'm not sure exactly if this is how Valet works, but there are no like firewall rules on outbound traffic. So that's why like your IT team doesn't have to make an exception to every new website that comes out. They don't have to add a new firewall rule to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
okay, you can get to google.com and you
yeah.
can get to domains.google.com now. It's like outbound traffic is not filtered.
Hmm.
Typically, it can be, but it's not typically. Inbound traffic is typically what they're worried about, right? So what Cloudflare Argo does is it basically puts a little agent. You can put a little agent on whatever server that you're going to be using, um, and then it connects to Cloudflare uh, using an SSL. It installs a SSL cert, and then what it allows you to do is you can literally block all port 80 and port 443 traffic to that machine. You can basically put it in a little bubble. Nobody
Hmm.
can talk to it except for this Cloudflare service agent, and it just talks directly to Cloudflare through your
Nice.
network. It doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. And so now what all that happens is Cloudflare gets the request to app.example.com and it says, "Oh, I'm handling that through my special tunnel.
Hmm.
Let me talk to the agent that's sitting on that machine." Send the request to it. The agent handles that and builds the response, sends it back through that same tunnel to Cloudflare Argo, and then it
Hmm.
spits out the response to the user. It is freaking incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So the reason why that's relevant, not only for the situation I just talked about, but for also other situations, is like things like PCI compliance.
Hmm.
Um, this makes it really nice because it's got intrusion detection. It logs every single access that happens.
Yeah.
It locks down that machine airtight. Nothing can talk to it except for this, this agent. And then if you want to SSH in, that's it.
Hmm.
That's all you can do. There is no web traffic happening. You can't do it. So if anybody tries to hit that IP address with 80 or 443, nothing there. It's pretty neat. Um, so if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, you should check it out. It's very affordable as well. Um, and you could also do it as like you actually use it as something like Valet Share if you cared to. Like you can run a Cloudflare Argo straight from your machine, like your Mac. And what
Yeah.
it can also do then is you can use your own domain. So like if you have like michaeldorinda.net or something,
Hmm.
you could spin up quickly a myapp.michaeldorinda.net
Hmm.
and use Argo to serve that, and it would go straight through to your machine.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, pretty neat. So check that out. Yeah.
Very nice. Very
Hey guys,
nice.
that's all I've got today. But those are kind of the things I've been thinking about.
That's
So
pretty
I
cool.
don't,
Yeah, I was.
like I feel like blog posts and videos and stuff like I don't feel like I necessarily actually have the time to do most of those. So hopefully this can act as a little outlet for all the things that are bouncing around in my brain for anybody who
Mm,
actually listens to this.
yeah. No, it's cool. I am. It's always good to talk about refactoring and that kind of stuff because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are doing it, and Chris Fidel keeps on yanking my chain about it. He's like, "When are you going to talk about doing this stuff at scale and like actual big applications and things like that?" And I said, "Look, my applications are not like the problems I'm solving are not interesting problems. The problems I'm solving are legacy craft problems and like working
Yeah.
around them. They're not like running Laravel at scale. Like if you want to talk about Laravel at scale, I think Jack Ellis just said today
Yeah.
or yesterday that he's going to look at deploying infrastructure at scale and things like that for um, as part of his serverless Laravel course. So that might be something interesting. But in terms of the stuff that I do, it's a lot of it is just duct tape and blue tack and like hoping for the best in a lot of scenarios. I'm actually very excited. I've got a project that I will be starting tomorrow to redo our online sign up. And that'll be vanilla, like starting from scratch, brand new, Laravel new, um, Livewire.
Use Livewire, dude.
I'm gonna
Livewire for
do. I'm
sure.
gonna go Livewire Alpine. It's gonna be a
You use that
multi-step
tall
form.
stack.
Yeah, I did. I spun that tall stack up. I did actually spin that up on Then Ping Me. And I have got it to the point where I now have a blank page for our project list. So it's
That
working,
tall stack is freaking awesome. Yeah.
but it's cool. Yeah, so I'm going to be using that for this project. So Toll being Tailwind, Alpine, JS, Livewire framework, and
Laravel.
Laravel. So I'll be doing that. Uh, I'm looking forward to it. It'll simplify a lot of stuff for me in terms of not having to have these giant view components and managing state between things. I'll just be able to send requests to the server and get responses and keep it all in sync that way. It'll be a multi-step form, which I know that you've had some fun with in the past, but
Yep.
unlike
Yep.
you, I just send a request to the server and then save the step and then go to the next step. So actually,
Yeah, I
no,
think if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing.
yeah, because you were storing it in like JavaScript or something, weren't you?
Vue,
Yeah, in Vue.
Vue.js. Yeah, I was starting in Vuex. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was
Which was
storing,
okay. It was really snappy, you know what I mean?
yeah.
But like I feel like at this point, like with or not Alpine, but with Livewire, it's feels pretty snappy too. So
Yeah. Yes. So I mean, the current iteration of this form is storing things in session, which is okay, but it doesn't really make it easy for you to resume, come back to it later and things like that. Because if the
yeah,
session
for sure.
times out, then it's gone.
Screwed. Yeah.
There's no, and because it's a sales process, there's no way for our sales team to like, if they wanted to go and find, what do you call
Like
them, orphaned
abandoned.
orders, abandoned orders, things
Yeah.
like that, and like figure out why customers didn't and see if they can handhold them through and things like that. So it'll be cool to do that, and then we're going to use Nova for the administration side of things because I don't want to write that myself, and Nova's going to make it really easy. So yeah, I should be able to knock this out pretty quickly. Going to use Tailwind for all the Tailwind UI for a lot of the structural elements of it. We've got in-house marketing and design team that'll give direction on what it needs to look like. But in terms of building it, it's like a six-page thing, so it's not going to be a huge amount of work.
Okay. So there's no forks in it. Like you don't have like a conditional path.
No, not really. There's like a couple of small deviations, like little side quests, depending on whether you have a fixed line technology or a wireless technology, but not enough to warrant like you could go this way or you'd go that way and then you'd come straight back.
Okay.
So there's not much deviation. It's really a bouncing ball. Like, what is your name? What is your address that we're providing a service to you at? Contact details, email, phone number. Next step, choose a plan. Next step, do you need to buy a router? Next step, what contract do you want? Next step, do you need an appointment? Next step, done. Like, here's your summary. Yes, I agree to all the terms and conditions. Like, that's it. It's a simple process. It's just a matter of like handling all of the cases of like, if you choose this, then that kind of thing. But there's no huge forks. It's pretty much we ask you the same questions irrespective.
Okay, let me know when you're ready for that state machine talk, bro. Because I'm promising you. I promise you. I know. Like from the top view, it's like, oh no, there's no forks. You'll find them.
You can go.
They'll
forward.
be there.
You can be on the step you're on. You can go back a step. You can go back to any of the steps that you've completed, and you can go forward to the next one. That's it. And
Oh boy, even that.
I've built this already.
Oh, you already built it. Okay.
Yeah, it's literally one class that's like, here are all the steps. You can go forwards or you can go backwards, and that's it.
Sweet. That's awesome.
I managed to keep it simple. Keep it simple.
We have a wizard that is quite complex. Wilbur Power did an excellent job of building it. Yeah, there's like it's probably 5 different end like game. Like you could say, you go to here, and then depending on that, it goes. There's a lot of different. I don't even know how many different variations there could possibly be.
Yeah.
I should probably run that. But yeah, there's a lot, and it works every time perfectly. And we also get like history of where they jumped, which places, and then like you said, sort of we get like a payload that dumps out and says, here's the things they did, here's the information they put in, and then we know if they started or if they finished or if they abandoned or whatever. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Luckily, we basically just go like, if they're on this step, we know that they've completed the previous one because they can't be on this one unless they've done the previous one. And
right, unless they've already done. Yeah.
It's fairly linear progression. So we just say like, from step 1, we would post to the server, we would validate. If everything passes, we'd say, okay, they've completed step 1. They're now on step 2, and then they can go there. And so we store like this is step 0, this is step 1 through 6, whatever, 1 through 5.
Yep.
If they're on 2, we know they've completed 0 and 1, so they can be on 2, but they can't go to 3 unless they post step 2. We validate it, it's fine, and then we say, okay, now you're on step 3. So it's easy to come back there. And that's pretty much how we did it with the current version. There's not really too many changes. Like they can go back, but they can't go forward. Like you can't go to a step unless the current one or the most up to the furthest part that you have completed is done, right? So you can't
Yeah.
go from step 2 to step 4. You have to go to 3. And we just basically catch them and say, "Oh, you can't go there," and say this step now. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting rid of all of that view because we've had it for about 3 years now, and it's just really complicated, and we've like jammed so much stuff in there that it's starting to get a bit dicey. You know, every time we add a new piece of logic, it's like, oh, let's just throw another v if it there, and a computed property and whatever else. So yeah, it'd be nice to just reset and have a good think about it and figure out what needs to go where and do it again. So
use that Mikado method.
yeah, no, just gonna scrap it and start again.
Hey, whatever works.
This one we have the luxury.
Yeah, there you go. That's nice. That's nice. Hey, what episode are we on?
76.
76. Ready to wrap this thing? Let's do it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This is episode 76. And if you like the show, please rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. Come talk to us on Twitter at Michael Bennett. At Michael Bennett. We're brothers now.
You've done that. It's weird.
At Michael Dorinda. I know it's not. It's the second. At Michael Dorinda, at Jake Bennett, or at North South Audio. If you would like show notes for this episode, you can find them at northmeetsouth.audio/76. I think that's all of it. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Stay well. Stay home. Maybe.
Check out
I don't know. I don't know if that's still a thing.
Well, I'm staying home.
Use fathom.com/north. Couldn't be any easier.
No, it couldn't.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Sounds good. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.